Welcome back, everyone. Right, now for our final session of the day, we've got a number of short presentations and then some closing remarks by our esteemed Vice Chair, Agnes, Rennie. So first of all, I want to introduce Dannie from Colonsay, the second best island in Scotland. Egg, obviously. And Colonsay has got a long history of community ownership issues, and Dannie and his team there are making fantastic progress now. So look forward to hearing from you, Dannie, as to what's happening. Thank you.
Thanks, Ailsa, and thanks everyone for making me welcome. It's my first CLS conference, so thank you. Find the right button. Colonsay, small island. Probably most of you know where it is. It's got a population of about 125, a slightly declining population, an unbalanced age profile. Probably most of the issues that you've all got in your small communities. CCDC, the Development Trust, the development company, we've got a membership of 75 out of the 125. We have 8 directors, 4 of whom are pensioners, like me. We have 2 full-time equivalent staff. We're quite small. We've grown a bit. The development company's been in existence since around 2000. I joined in 2016. I was invited to join. We just got a little problem getting some land, they said. I didn't read the small print. I'm still there trying to build the houses. You can get to Colonsay by an aeroplane, scheduled service, twice a day, but only on Thursdays. You can go by boat. We have 3 boats in the winter, and 6 or 7 boats in the summer. You're getting a picture of it's a tourist island. And we get, people come for that sort of thing, the lovely beaches. But there's a danger, and it's the thing that's been pointed out to me, and it's, again, something you've seen elsewhere. There's a danger of this becoming a resort rather than a working, living community. This is one of our older farmhouses. Farmhouses are not farmhouses anymore. They're let out for a very high rent. And all the farms have been taken in by the estate, all bar one. And they at least provide sheep and cows for tourist photographs. This is Colonsay House. Colonsay Estate owns most of the land. This is their 2-person housing unit. We have 1 hotel, which is for sale. We have a small primary school. There aren't that many pupils anymore. There were 8 at that time. We're down to 2 full-time and 4 in preschool. We have 1 shop owned by the estate, but leased. The business is part owned by the estate, and they sublet to the post office. We, as a development company, has a trading company arm which runs the fuel supplies to the island, including coal and gas. We have a community hall, complete with a community garden, and just off screen there, a community play park. These are all, well, the hall is 2000, the garden and play park are more recent additions. We have a fish farm, salmon fish farm. I'll tell you a bit more about those later. That's Maui. One of the recent community assets we have is what used to be the Baptist Manse at Colonsay. It was bought with some SLF funding. We're still working out what the best thing to do with it is, but it's served temporarily as a home for people who haven't got anywhere else to live, and it's also being used by our contractors on our development projects. That was a very useful acquisition. There's a bit of land with it, so that's a project to look forward to in the future. So, yeah, this is Colonsay. This is the main settlement, the bustling metropolis. It's not actually got the most houses. It's mostly estate land there, and all the more recent second homes, other houses, have been built on the croft land on the opposite side of the island. We recently acquired, with some SLF money, some HA money, Argyll and Bute, I think, and yeah, we acquired 2 plots of land in this photograph, which I'll show you a bit more detail of in a minute. When that land deal had been done 2 years ago with Colonsay Estate, the previous owner said to me, quite frankly, CCDC is going to have to grow a pair to develop that. So we've grown a pair of quarries, a pair of diggers. They peck away all day, bang, 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 bang. It's like they're pecking on the head of the established order on Colonsay. It's a lovely, it's music, it's fabulous. We have 2 planning permissions. We have a pair of planning permissions, sorry. We have a pair of contracts to develop these 2 sites. We've definitely got some pairs going on. On the left is the housing site, which is to the south of the road, which goes basically from the pier up to the hotel, the main entry point into the island when you get off the boat. The yellow, pale yellow, yes you can see that, is the first phase, which is on site now. 4 homes for rent, 2 for low-cost home ownership, and 3 for Maui, who are our industry partners in this scheme. Maui needs staff accommodation. There are also 3 self-built plots for sale on that development. The remainder of the site, it's capped at 24 units, but that's reasonable by the deed with the estate. So there's another potential of another 12 units on that site. On the right, we've got the business unit site, which is a pair of business units. Part of the arrangement again with the estate. There's nothing in the title, there's no commitment, but we had to give them a letter of comfort to say that the business units would not conflict with their own ambitions for business units. So they produced a number of smaller units in a converted steading, and we've produced something slightly bigger on our new land. That's just sort of a typical idea of what the houses will be like. They've changed since that, but this was a more presentable picture than some of the other ones. And that's the very simple business units that we're putting up. What we did was based on a 10-year-old community plan, and then we revisited that and basically surveyed what people thought was most important, what residents thought was most important. And you may not be able to see, you can see it better than I can actually. Availability of affordable housing, got the most score. Provision of quality broadband, got a high score. That's being addressed through, is it? Rollout of full fibre, I forget, is it R100? Something like that. Availability of, business, what's the next one? Broadband business facilities, so we're addressing that. And availability of community-owned assets. Not quite sure what the question meant or what people were thinking when they answered that, but we're certainly addressing that. So what we want to do now, what's happened is there's been a lot of division. There's a lot of been people who've said, why are you doing this, why are you doing that? There's been conflict with the landowners. There's been conflict with people whose primary business is the tourism, people who want to, who need to, who want to control development so that their business interests are better provided for. And we don't want to continue with that us and them or that division. We want to try and break that somehow. So we spent a lot of time working on the delivery of what we've got, and that's been really time consuming. Took us 3 years with the estate. COVID hasn't helped with getting the buildings, contractors on site. But through that process, we were already talking about renewing our community plan for the next 10 years. And one of the things we did, well, I asked for some support for an economic understanding of the island, so that we knew, we were constantly being told, oh, tourism's the thing that keeps us going, we must have tourism, that's the main industry. Didn't quite believe it, so we asked for some help on, gosh, that's quick, on getting a self-assessment. Sorry, I just got the number one saying, gotta hurry up, 1 minute. But what we got instead was we got a self-assessment report done on us, or a report done for us, taking into account how the whole island works and where we need to improve. We had 14 recommendations. We've implemented 13 of those. The 14th is to do with working with the Community Council. The Community Council on Colonsay is slightly dysfunctional. It only has 4 members left, 2 of which are the principal landowners, and it doesn't quite represent the population of Colonsay until the elections in October. So we've had that assessment done. It makes us feel stronger, and it lets everybody else out there know that we have looked at ourselves and how we can be better. So we're now in the process of community consultation. We've been out with open questions about what do you like here, what don't you like, what ideas have you got. We're now going through an interview process with key organisations, including the estate, to try and get everybody involved in what we want to do. We're going to produce by the end of the autumn a plan and an action plan, and I hope that we'll take that forward into a local place plan. What we're after is something spatial, so that we can begin to identify the bits of land that we might need going forward. So the end product of this is we are going to need more land. And how we get that, I don't know. That's a future project. Oh, can go backwards. Anyway, thank you all very much.
Thanks, Danny. I really love the 2-person housing unit. I think we've got a few of those. Okay, so now we're going to, I think, present a short video. Is that right, Meg? Yeah. Do I just press the button? Heather presses the button. And this is on a project they've been working on for about 18 months now. We've developed it in partnership with communities and schools on the Western Isles on Mull. And this is a rural focused education project, but we've now got funding through the Scottish Government to look at an urban focused education project. So the video we're about to show will talk you through how it works. We've had fantastic feedback from the schools that have used it so far. So this year we'll be rolling out the rural project, and as I say, starting to look at the urban project. So, okay. Could I have done that? Probably.
The quest really started as a kind of little lockdown project for Community Land Scotland, and it's really developed well. We're really delighted by how well the pilots have gone in the schools and how the schools have embraced the whole project. The idea is that it's a kind of fun way for children to work their way through a community buyout. So it's an online resource that kids can go on and they can have discussions about what is community, think about business ideas, and then work their way through pretty much the process a community would be going through in a buyout. So by the end of it, they've made decisions about what kind of businesses they want to develop, what the community thinks about their idea. So it's really similar in a lot of ways to an actual community buyout. I think the developer's whole idea of making it a game was really a stroke of genius, just to make it far more interesting. So there's many elements of the quest that seem really game-like for children.
We were put in contact with Community Land Scotland, who said they were piloting the quest, and when they presented their idea to us, it there was a lot of connections with what's happened in North Harris. So it just seemed like an opportunity to work together to provide a really good introduction for the children into the land and land ownership and what it could mean for them.
I liked the quest because we got to work with different people and learn more about them.
I liked the quest because we got to meet new people along the way.
It was really interesting to learn about things that relate to where we live.
And we also got to go around some of the places we were looking at, the wind turbines. We got to look at and see how they worked and stuff.
Well, I guess from a teacher's perspective, when someone comes to you with an idea and then says, we'll do all the legwork, that's brilliant. That's a really good start point. The structure of the quest resource is really helpful for allowing discussion points. It's set up so that you go through small chunks, introducing the estate and then considering what options you have, and then doing a sort of business approach to the different proposals that are part of it. So at each stage, it's possible to stop and have a discussion in the class about some of the concepts. For example, hydroelectric power comes up, so you can talk about what hydro is, how it works, why it might be suitable in one place and not another. Same with affordable housing. So yeah, it's a really nicely structured resource.
When we got education experts on board, they suggested actually giving the children almost like a real lived experience of community ownership. And community ownership has got many stages in the process. So breaking it down so children could go through basically the same stages anyone would go through in a community buyout, where you've got to learn a lot at each different stage and make different types of decisions at each stage. So I think the way that the developers we brought on board have developed the resource has been really creative and seems to work really, really well in practice.
There's some really positive stuff happening in Harris. So we obviously have the North Harris Trust, the West Harris Trust. There's been a community buyout of the old primary school building in Leverburgh, which is a really positive step for them. And they're able to put forward ideas like that. At the moment, there's a charity shop, cafe, gym. And so getting across that idea that you can sort of self-help, you can do this for yourself, that you can take control of your local area and make positive change is great. We have role models in the community, but it's really nice for the children to tie that in with actually, here's a formal structure for how this works.
If you ask a lot of community landowners what's most important to them, they would all say young people and the future of their area and encouraging young people to stay there and make a life there, and ideally come and work for the community landowner. So young people having a really good grip of what's happening around them is really important.
As they went through the quest, they had to collate a lot of information and then present it back to the class. So by the very end, they were well versed in the material, but they then had to present it to the whole class, which was quite a big step. And they did it confidently in the end. It was really nice to see.
It was really impressive how much they thought through some of the big issues, and they were able to come out with what were very impressive business plans at the end of the process.
I think it's great that the children are getting an opportunity to learn about and start to engage with it. It's about community building and some of the stuff that they see going on in their own communities in West Harris and in Leverburgh have been really good examples of how they can take forward their own views and ideas for the community. So to be able to tie it in with their quest and sort of begin to understand how they might take community land ownership forward in the future is a really nice thing to be part of.
The quest was really developed with rural communities in mind. That's where the whole idea really came from. But as we've been talking about it more to community landowners, a message we've heard really clearly is that community landowners in towns and cities are also really keen to have a similar tool. So that's going to be our project for 2022, is to develop an urban version, focusing more on urban assets. So that's going to be really exciting as well.
So if you're interested in finding out more about the project, then all the information is on the website, or get in touch with Lindsay and she can send on details, particularly if you've got a school that you think will be interested in working on the project. Oh no, actually I do need Heather now. La, 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 la. Oh, beyond my capacities. Well done. Excellent. Anyway, so that's how we're hopefully trying to engage much younger members of our communities in community land ownership. And now I'm going to invite Dr. Bobby Macaulay to come and talk about a project that's focused on academics and students, and how we can engage more of that cohort in the community ownership movement. So I'm not seeing it. Bobby's right here. Okay, Bobby? I'm not even going to touch anything.
Thank you very much, and thanks to, I think, everyone at Community Land Scotland for partly letting me speak today, but also for another fantastic conference. This is very much one of the highlights of my year, and when I was doing my PhD research on the health implications of community land ownership, someone who I believe is still in this room told me that the only negative health impacts of community land ownership are volunteer fatigue and the hangover after the CLS conference. And I think that broadly, 5 years on, that finding is still relatively true. So I'm going to speak about clan today. And really it's an introduction and an invitation to be part of this. I'll explain the kind of academic side of it But yeah, CLAN, Community Land Ownership Academic Network. Really, when I speak about academia, I'm more speaking about research, but the acronym didn't work. So I'm going with academia. Academia and research more broadly takes a wee while to catch up with developments in the real world, and community land ownership research is no different. In terms of the field itself, it's kind of developed gradually over the past 25 years, along with, but probably 5 years behind, the actual developments on the ground in community land ownership. In kind of broad brush sense, there's two main areas of focus in terms of academic disciplines. The first being policy and law, assessing the legalities, the kind of elements of land reform policy, and that research tends to spike around about the time of legislation. So it tends to be focusing on land reform bills and community empowerment bill when it's really assessing the legal and political implications of them. The other side of it is what I'm broadly calling sustainability studies, which brings in a whole kind of breadth of different disciplines from community development, geography, housing studies, sociology, more now moving into ecology and climate and environmental studies. But these are kind of developing and are getting more and more in depth, and as more people learn about community land ownership and learn about land reform and get interested and excited about it at, I'd say, younger age, but I suppose at an earlier stage of their academic development, I suppose, get masters and undergraduate students that are really getting involved, then the field of people interested in doing research is getting bigger and bigger. In terms of the institutions and actors involved in research activity, University of the Highlands and Islands, SRUC and James Hutton Institute are the most active kind of, I suppose, academic and formal research institutions. But we have currently on the CLAN mailing list, there's 15 different academic institutions represented, where you get wee pockets of people dotted about different universities that are interested in this topic, but very much uncoordinated and kind of coming from very different disciplinary backgrounds. You also have research coming from the policy side, Scottish Government, and now increasingly the Land Commission, looking at, again, evaluating policy and its practical implementation, possible future implications of it. And then from practice, whether it's CLS, whether it's others commissioning their own research projects, community case studies, community-based research, coming from that side as well. There's nothing about it that's less rigorous or robust or important about that side of non-academic research, but it's going on kind of in tandem as well. And then various independent researchers, some of whom are in the room, that are again doing their own individual independent research into this topic. So what I'm trying to get at here is there's a huge amount of activity in this field, and there's a lot going on in terms of interest. But tell me whether any of these problems ring true. I'm speaking specifically to those involved in community owning, asset owning community organisations. From the academic side, the research is quite fragmented and uncoordinated. So what you get is research duplication. You get people finding the same things. That's good, fine. We find that this has an economic impact. We find that it has a social impact. We've established that, but there may not be that coordination and there may not be that prior research to say, actually, we don't need to look into that anymore. We've found that. But it also leaves persistent gaps elsewhere, where we still don't know aspects of community land ownership that are absolutely vital to know, whether it's because policy needs to be informed, whether it's because a community needs to know what this life-changing decision of whether to take on an asset or not will actually do to their community. These are things that we need to know. So certain areas are neglected, there's persistent gaps, but at the same time, you get a whole heap of researchers going to the same communities, asking the same questions, never to be seen again, extracting data, I see a few nods, extracting data from participants, and leading to fatigue, leading to people getting sick, fed up of researchers, and leading to actually communities that have research needs and want to find things out, not actually being able to influence that agenda, not being able to actually say, no, you shouldn't be asking that question, you should be asking this question. And then when the research is conducted and done, where do they find out the results? Where do they find the results, the findings of the research? In an accessible way, not in academic papers. If anyone is interested in the field, whether it's communities, whether it's academics, whether it's any other researchers, where do they go as that central hub point to match with communities, to find out what's already been done, to find things which are there and things which are not, to establish the research gap, I suppose, in that parlance. So that is, hopefully, where the Community Land Ownership Academic Network clan can come in. This was kind of set up through a steering group last year within UHI. I'd like to emphasise at this point, this is not a UHI thing, nor is it solely an academic thing. This is administered, I suppose, at UHI, predominantly by myself, but is very much looking for a collaborative approach across disciplines, across universities, very much hand in hand with community groups to say what is needed, what research has been done, what research still needs to be done. We have at least an initial structure. We have an advisory group which is due to meet in the next month or so, I believe. And I suppose those provisional purposes, the reason I say provisional is this is all open to change. This is me administering it, but it's very much accountable to other researchers and other community groups in terms of what we are trying to do. But really what it comes down to is working with community organisations to identify what is needed in terms of research, to conduct that research and then to communicate it in accessible, useful ways. And then from the academic side, to coordinate those activities between different researchers so we don't start speaking to the same community every time. We don't just focus on one topic or area, but actually we spread our expertise and our time and knowledge to various different useful endeavours in this field. In terms of what's happening now and in the future, in terms of that collaboration, what I'd like to do is actually map what research activity is going on and what is needed. And then longer term, these are just ideas, but a protocol on research conduct and communication. So develop something saying, if you want to research on this on a community organisation, this is what is good ethical practice for researchers. This is how you can write your findings down to make them in a useful way for community groups that you're working in. And then longer term, some kind of matching or filtering service. Some people have done this informally in the past where they've almost been passed on to a third party saying, is this researcher worth speaking to? Is this any good? Is this research going to lead to anything? But a formal way of doing that so that the burden isn't put on communities and so that researchers are given the appropriate kind of community group to speak to. In terms of communication, we're having meetings already online. It tends to be more academics, but it's open to everyone. So if you want to be involved, please email me just to get an idea of what we're trying to do. We're working on setting up a newsletter and ideally long term, some kind of online portal, some compendium of knowledge, something that we can say, this is what we know about this field. And again, written in an accessible way and not just a list of papers. In terms of that coordination, we have research subgroups as the kind of structure of it. We have people coming at this topic from all angles. We have an archaeologist, we have someone looking at the human rights angle, we have people looking at it in terms of Gaelic, we have kind of methodological folk wanting to look at arts and literature-based approaches to community land ownership research. These are all valid angles to come at, and we have individuals now identified as the kind of leader of that particular theme on community land ownership research, so that if anyone else wants to work with them, wants to access that field, then they have pals to go to. They have a wee tribe that they can tap into, and again, coordinating that research to not overburden community groups. Short term, and we should have found out about this funding by now, but hopefully soon we'll find out whether I can do a wee project in terms of co-producing a research agenda. So that is really what I want to do, is an online survey. Hopefully some of you here might be happy to fill it out in terms of your experience of having engaged in research, what you'd want from research, what you'd want in terms of relationships with researchers, just as an initial project to say, what are we going to do here? What research do we do? How do we do it? How do we communicate it? So these aspects are developing. These things take time, so bear with me. But just to say that this is ongoing and to kind of highlight it to you all. And then as an invitation to join, what I'm trying to do here and what I hope I've communicated is that academics need data. Academics in this field need people to talk to or data to analyse. And in many senses, without being disparaging, many of you are that data. We need you, but you don't need us. So what I'm trying to get at is I am trying to create a way that it is actually beneficial to community groups to engage with academics and researchers, so that you don't decide that actually you'd be better off without us and put us out of a job, and to really work with academics and researchers to co-produce that agenda and research topics, speak about how you would want researchers to act, to engage with community groups, how you'd want findings to be communicated. And so in terms of next steps, very welcome to come to meetings. The easiest way to do that now is to email me and ask to be added to our mailing list. That's my email address there. Follow us on Twitter at UHI_clan, and look out for the survey, which I hope to be able to send out in the next few months. But also, if you have any opinions, thoughts, advice, anything on how this can go, so that we can create a sustainable model for engagement between community landowning sector and academic research sector, please let me know, because we need you and you don't need us. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Bobby. You were very appealing there, so I'm sure you'll get people contacting you. Right, final session of the day. Our esteemed Vice Chair, Agnes Rennie, is going to make some closing remarks. Thanks, Agnes.
I should trip you up on the way. Thank you to our esteemed Chair for that warm welcome. Listening to Bobby there, needless to say, I'm never too far away from academic views of where we're at with community land ownership, but it did remind me, and I've yet to thank Lindsay for this, we are constantly, I have to say, receiving requests from people. We, and I mean probably most of the people in this room, from all kinds of people, and I have to say I have a terrible weakness that I give people the benefit of the doubt, and I agree. But when Lindsay put me in touch with a woman from America whose research was on spirituality and land ownership, I thought, well, this is a new one. But if Lindsay thinks I should speak to her, I'm going to speak to her. And those who know me best will understand that that's not really my main area of interest as far as land ownership, or indeed most other things are concerned. But I spoke to this lady who was, we were on Zoom, and she was coming to terms with her new baby, and we were all on the Zoom back and forth, and it was all quite entertaining. But as a reflection on what this world we're all part of is, it turns out that her real background and specialism was community land rights. And she was a land rights legal specialist. Did you know that, Lindsay? You never told me. And my God, she was fascinating. And I happened to mention in the course of this conversation, which went on a long time when we finally managed to connect with time differences, that one of the growing kind of challenges we had was now with the new green lairds who were trying to, who were really entering the market in a way which we couldn't even measure. And she became so animated because she had very recently been working with some of the indigenous people that she'd been working with in Africa on the very same topic. And I thought, my goodness, this world, my world is Ghabhsainn. Sometimes it extends beyond, a wee bit beyond that. But in that conversation that evening, I was speaking to this woman in the west coast of America, and we were talking, we were linked by talking about indigenous land rights in Africa. And it was an amazing moment. So thank you, Lindsay, for putting me in touch with that mature student, I have to say. So on the question of thanks, I am obliged, and I've been tasked to thank once again all our sponsors. And earlier today, Ailsa gave you all the details on them, so I'm not going to list all that again. But what I do want to list just now is our fantastic staff team at Community Land Scotland, without which these last 2 days would not have happened. So I'd like you all to join me just now to thank Meg and Lindsay and all the team who've been working on making these 2 days possible. I think we've really missed the conference, and not just for the occasional visit to the pub, although that obviously is a big moment. The food's a big moment, but most of all, for me, the moment is about getting back with old friends and making new friends, as always happens. And once again, that's happened this year. It is one of the aspects of the Community Land Scotland Conference which never fails, and it's an aspect of it that I think we all really treasure, and it's something we look forward to. Thinking about today, and I was in the course of the day and yesterday indeed, I was kind of trying to pick up things. And a phrase that Lucy used this morning in respect of the year of community land ownership was that she was thinking about a year of activities that would reflect community land ownership as something that encourages, inspires and provokes. And I thought, my God, that's this conference. This is a conference that encourages us. It encourages those of us who are struggling, because let's not pretend that this is an easy journey. It encourages those who are just starting on the journey, and hopefully those of us who've been on the road a wee while can share some of our experience, and in that way we can inspire each other. We've heard inspirational stories over the last couple of days, and it provokes. And the fact that we have people with us to provoke, not necessarily community land ownerships and landowners in themselves, but they come and they join us and they share our journey and they provoke us. And we need that, because we constantly need to be reminded that this is not something that's a given. It's something that we do because we're allowed to do it, and then it's our challenge to ourselves and as communities to take it forward and keeping moving. And something else that was said this morning, I think it might have been in response to Laurie's paper, and I think it might have been you, Andy, who said it. If not, I'm misquoting you, I'm sorry, that the kind of 45-year prism, maybe it was somebody else who said it, is a long way to look in terms of the kind of time scale we're being asked to look at. But actually, I've always thought that it's that long-term prism for our world that makes this so different. We're no longer talking about 5-year projects or 10-year projects. And I don't mind repeating myself on this one, because I used it the day that we took ownership, we took over the responsibility of running the land in Ghabhsainn. It's a forever project, and it'll be there long after I'm here, and I hope there for my children and for their children and for everybody else in the community, and I'm sure it's the same for all of you too. So I'm not going to say very much more, because I promised Jamie that we would be finished before 5, and we're going to do that. But before I say my cheerios, can I remind you, please, otherwise Meg will absolutely say that I let her down. If you haven't filled your feedback forms, please do so. Yeah, I didn't forget, Meg. And with that thought, thank you all very much for coming, because without you here, we wouldn't have a conference. Safe journey home, wherever home is, and see you again next year, wherever we decide to have the conference. Thank you.